everybody, welcome to another edition of Claibs Online. Well, normally, as we do on this show, we talk a lot of sports, but today we're going to shift gears. You heard us with Cedric the Entertainer recently. One of my personal favorites, Greg Warren, St. Louis guy, is back with us, and we say hello to Greg. Greg, man, it's great to have you on. Secondly, it's great to have you back in St. Louis working this weekend at the Funny Bone.
Hey, Claibs, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It's been fun. Been fun to watch you ascend in the business. That's what I get a kick out of.
Oh, hey, thanks a lot, man. I'm a giant fan, man. I mean, you said we're gonna talk comedy. I was hoping you're gonna give me a little insight on
Cardinals.
What pitchers we were.
Yeah, okay. Hey, that line goes all the way out the door, man.
Everybody wants to know, right?
No matter where you go, whether you go to the cleaners or a supermarket or a bar. I was at dinner last night. I had 3 different waiters come. Oh, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, man.
Are we going to spend any money? And I always remind them, I said, they spend money. They have $60 million worth of first and third baseman on the infield.
Yeah.
I mean, how many teams have that? But, here's the thing we talk about is the fact that we need pitching. And we need a hell of a lot more than you think, because we always talk about we need 3 starters. Did anybody notice how many saves we blew last year? We blew over 33 saves last year. So you better shore that bullpen up, because if you think you can sign a starting pitcher, the first thing he's going to ask you is, well, who's in the bullpen? I'm not going to go out here and bust my ass for 7 innings and only to give it back up after some guy lays in a hanging slider. So you better have some legitimate arms in your bullpen and work from the 9th inning to the 1st inning.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not good news. I mean, we don't have that many resources. The thing that scares me the most is if you look at who they went out and got, the other teams went out and got last year, they were a bust, man.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
None of it worked.
The Mets spent more money last year or this past season on free agents. So they had the biggest payroll in the history of sports, or at least in baseball. And they watched the playoffs on TV. The Yankees did the same. I mean, there were so many teams that spent money.
I don't think it's a history of sports clubs. I think that's the NIL over at the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Yeah, you're right. They're in the clubhouse with the lead on that. You're absolutely right on that. There's no doubt about it. All right, let me talk about you. You're here this weekend.
Yeah.
The Salesman. Tell me about it, man. I've seen it. I mean, I've heard it, but tell me about it. So people who haven't seen it, we don't want to give up all the good stuff, but tell me about it.
Well, Claibs, I wrote a lot of it over the pandemic. It was produced by my friend Nate Bargatze, who's having sort of
he's having a good run.
Yeah, having a real good run. He hosted SNL the other day, and he's doing well. But it's mostly about my career at Procter and Gamble. Primarily, I was in the peanut butter game, Claibs.
I'm a big fan of peanut butter.
Are you?
Crunchy or creamy, though?
Well, Claibs, I mean, that's not really the question. I mean, that's fine. I would say either. I mean, 4-1 is people prefer creamy to crunchy.
Yeah.
Those are 1998 numbers. I would imagine the ratio pretty much holds up. But the question is what brand? And there's only really one right answer here. It's,
I'm listening.
It's Jif, Claibs. It's Jif, okay? I sold Jif.
Are you the natural Jif guy, or,
we didn't even have that stuff. I'm a guy that doesn't care for natural peanut butter. Claibs, it's got the inch of oil on top of it. It's disgusting.
It truly is.
Yeah. Well, Greg, that's how peanut butter naturally settles. Well, then cover it up. Nobody wants to see that.
Add something to it.
Yeah, Greg, your peanut butter doesn't do that because it has preservatives in it. Yeah, that's exactly why it doesn't do that.
And let me ask you a question. What doesn't have preservatives in it at this point in our lives? I mean, if we haven't been killed by now, I think we got a good shot.
Exactly. And look at the way the world's going, Claibs. Within the next 20 years, me and you and everybody else is going to be in a bunker somewhere, and you better hope there's stuff down there that has preservatives in it, okay?
I don't think there's any doubt about it. So let me ask you, making that big career change, when you're at P&G or Anheuser-Busch or the utility company, your parents stick their chest out. They're all proud of their kid. He's got a real job. How did that go down when you went home and said, you know what, I think I'm going to tell jokes?
Well, Claibs, I mean, my mother was very supportive. My mother was a writer. So my mother wrote a column for the Webster Kirkwood Times for several years and used to review books for the Post. So my mother was very supportive. My dad didn't care for the decision at all. I told him, and he said he didn't say anything for about
2 years.
Then he just said, no, you go get your job back. I'm like, Dad, I'm 33. I wasn't really asking on this one. Like,
I'm out of the basement too, by the way.
Yeah, I was. If you want to get technical, Clay, I think that first year I was a comedian, I was in and out of that basement a little bit.
Through the back door.
It was crazy because I quit. I was 33 years old, and I had a pretty good career, and I had a little bit of money, but I lived on the road for a year straight. I just lived in hotels, and every now and then I'd come through St. Louis and stayed in my parents' basement for a few days. But I lived like out of the car, hotels for a full year. That's how I kind of really started getting it going.
Wait a minute, you didn't meet any pretty girls during that year? I mean, they didn't invite you over because you were that funny?
Yeah, well, I thought it was because I was real good looking.
Well, let's stay in one swim lane right here. Let's stay in the one we know we could do a lap up and back on.
Yeah, you're right, man. Yeah, if we're gonna lie, let's double down on something that I do. No, I did. Well, that I was doing comedy during those first 10 years when I was selling peanut butter, and I'd do shows at night, and we'd meet some girls or something, and the guys would want to go for drinks, and these girls would, hey, you want to go to this bar? And I'd be like, I got to get up and sell peanut butter. And I remember it was the first weekend after I quit. We were at a club, and these girls after the show were like, hey, we're going to this thing here. Do you want to go? And I was like, yes, yes, I do. And about 6 months later, I sort of woke up and was like, you might want to take this a little more seriously. This isn't, it was like spring break for me for about 6 months. And I was like, maybe I need to get up and write every morning and work on my craft. But
that's interesting. You talk about writing, because one of the things about being a comedian, we had Cedric on not long ago.
He's so good.
And, he is. And I think all comedians share one thing: they have to be observant in order to find material to write about and talk about. Is that something you were good at early in your career? Because a lot of guys that I knew, when they get into joning with each other, they could just look at, hey, what about that button you have on your shirt?
Yeah.
You look for the little things and then you try and build on it. Is that kind of a direction you've gone?
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that, because I think everybody has their own little take on it. But I think if I was going to say, okay, you got to sit down tomorrow morning and write comedy, it's tricky. It's almost, it's like nothing is funny. So you said be observant, and I sort of think you can start with, what did I notice yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
What did I notice yesterday? I think that's the comedian's first job, is just to notice your surroundings. And what did I notice? What happened that didn't normally happen yesterday? Who did I meet that, I'm not usually around? How did I feel? If you can find sort of key in on those things, you can sort of, through some sort of magic, turn it into something that's funny. Interesting can become funny. It takes a lot of practice. I mean, over here you have this premise, over here you have this finished joke that you do on stage. I've been doing this for a long time. I still am not sure I can explain to you what happens between here and here, other than if you do it every morning, the distance gets a lot shorter and you start finding it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good way to approach it too, and having an open mind about it. Hey, one of the things, I don't know if many of your fans, I'm sure some of your fans know, you were a wrestler or a wrestler, because
a wrestler.
Okay, so you were a guy who was playing for keeps, who's having scoring points, knowing the fireman's carriage and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Instead of you were trading the fireman's carriage for the spinning toe hold.
Exactly.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. Now, if I was going to do any wrestling, Claibs, I would probably prefer Boston Crab all over spinning toe. Or that was my go-to, watching Larry Manisek and Wrestling at the Chase. on Sunday morning. Boston Crab would be where I'd go every time.
I'd say Uncle every time. I'd name off every relative I could think of in order to let me out of that.
Yeah, there is no defense. Yeah.
Now, did you take your friends out in the backyard and work on those moves after Sunday morning was over? You'd seen it twice now. Did you go out and practice some of those moves?
Yeah, some of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I wrestled at Missouri, and they're really good now. They're a top 5 team perennially wrestling. But
Ben Askern kind of put that program on.
You're right, man. Yeah. Ben did. And matter of fact, this hat is Ben coaches an elite club in Wisconsin, and this hat is this.
Really?
I went to one of his tournaments. This is like all the top 20 elite clubs in the country. But Ben and I are pretty close, and he's a coach now, and we have a direct pipeline to, the best kid on Missouri now is a kid named Keegan O'Toole. He's a 2-time national champ.
Yeah, real good wrestler.
Keegan wrestled for Ben when he was like 10 years old. So, he came up with Ben. But yeah, back when I wrestled Missouri, we weren't quite as good. We were decent, but we weren't quite as good. And, we didn't get a lot of media attention. And I think at one point the local news came up and they did a story on the wrestling team. And coach, I was like the captain or something. He's like, Warren, you and Bunner, they want to interview you and they want to take some shots. And just screw it. We were totally screwing around. And I put Chip in the Boston Crab, like just like doing, and he's like doing all this stuff, like wrestling the chase. Claibs, guess what clip they showed on the news that night? And my coach is like, you guys are an embarrassment. You guys are.
Sometimes I argue with Joe Roderick all the time about wrestling.
Yeah.
Where it's so entertainment driven now, where I know they do a lot of practicing the stunts and everything, but I always felt like our era was one, well, this is real, man. I mean, this is really good stuff.
It's not, Claibs. It's not real. I hate to break it to you, man.
Okay, I guess there's no Easter Bunny either now, right? You going to go there on me?
Well, that I'm not going to fight you.
All right.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we're on the same page.
Yeah. There's a lot of myths out there. Wrestling's real. Skippy is passable peanut butter. These are all like, myths, The Easter Bunny is at the bottom of that list.
Yeah. Things we take to our grave with us.
Yeah.
I think that's the approach. Hey, for you as a comedian, who are some of the people you try to have fun with and you just paying attention to them? Because there's so many out there, and there's a lot of good ones and there's a lot of bad ones. Who are some of the people that you found that have been consistent that you've been able to build from?
Man, it goes. I remember my buddy Stacy Weiland in St. Louis went to Fox High School. We went to a wrestling tournament my sophomore year of high school, and I'd never really heard stand-up comedy. And this was probably mid '80s, and we took a Greyhound bus up to Iowa, and we were cutting weight. We were miserable, and he had a Walkman. I mean, and nobody had a Walkman. It was like first. He had a Walkman and he had an Eddie Murphy cassette, and I was blown away, man. Eddie Murphy was the first guy. I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. This is unbelievable. I just annoyed everybody for about 6 months, just, doing Eddie's material to my friends. And then, over the years, Bob Newhart is a big influence. If you look at my latest special on YouTube, there'll be, I try not to read too much of that, but I wind up doing it. But there's comments. This guy favors Bob Newhart. This guy reminds me, which I try not to lean into it much, but I've probably been influenced a lot by Bob Newhart.
Hey, do you ever think we'll have another Don Rickles on the scene, or is he so politically incorrect that America couldn't take it?
It seems like there's a little bit of a reaction of guys are getting a little politically incorrect. And, I think it's silly. I'm a very liberal guy politically, as my parents, that's just the way they were. I think when it comes to comedy, I think we've taken it a little too far. I don't want to see anybody, offended. My style is not that at all, but I think there's some guys that I think are hilarious that are starting to, I don't think you'll ever quite get Rickles. You won't quite get that. just because there weren't cell phone cameras with Rickles. And it was like if you captured some of the stuff that he said out of context, you would be like, this guy would be canceled. But yeah, I try not to, I don't know, it's just not my style. I don't think I'm that offensive. But I did, on the last special, Claibs, I had this bit about nurse practitioners. I took a few shots at him. I was kidding. I got a lot of comments that were like, this is great, I'm a nurse practitioner. But I got several. 30 seconds after the thing came out, I got an email. I'm a nurse practitioner. I will never watch your comedy again. I will never go to another one of your shows. And I'm telling all my friends to boycott you. And I wrote back, hey, I'm sorry. I never want anybody to be upset by what I do on stage. But next time, could you have a doctor reach out? Because, you know, I don't really trust what you're saying here.
That's because you're a nurse practitioner. Be careful. That's why. All right. So before we get out of here, what's been on your mind lately? I mean, there's been some things I'm sure you've seen that you probably want to talk about. So what's been on your mind?
I mean, the latest thing that's on my mind, and this is very fresh. I am a sort of a barbecue connoisseur, and I am in a different city every week. And I think that the barbecue scene in St. Louis is as good as it's ever been. But I've noticed something about these barbecue restaurants. They're braggarts.
Yes.
Very braggadocious. Every time you walk in, there's about 30 trophies lined up. Best ribs, 2007, 2008, 2009, and 2011. And I want to say, hey, what happened in 2010? You know, I think you'll learn from your mistakes. I'd like to see something, some plaque, just with some bullet points that just sort of say, you know, we got 19th out of 19 rib teams. It was a horrible day. Steve brought his kid. We're pretty sure he melted a crayon in the sauce. The judge got sick. We were banned from competition for the next 6 years. I just want to, I would
just come clean.
Just come clean, man. I'm not going to, I'll embrace you if you let me know. Because like I said, I think you learned from the mistakes. I want to see that you faced adversity and have been able to overcome it. But all you see there is how great they did.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a very good point. I'm impressed with that. It's one of those situations where, what happened, the non-glory years. I tell you what it reminds me of also, like when college football and basketball coaches, I got one even better. The NFL draft. Have you ever seen a general manager with the first pick that he has say, we didn't even really want this guy, but we had to take him. Or when the draft is over, they said, you know, we couldn't believe this guy was still on the board when it was our time to pick.
It was always how they drew it up,
exactly.
right?
I mean, you know, we had a really good draft. We think we're going to be much better. Those are the ones that kill me. And the same thing with college recruiting as well. You know, we had him listed as a 5-star. Well, why did everybody else have him listed as a Chuckerberger All-American? You know, it's always you pump up your value. I'm not buying that anymore.
At least once, you'd like to see the guy. You know, frankly, we went after. We had about 10 guys we went after. None of them chose to come to our school.
Yeah. Or how about the ones that we couldn't believe he was still there? Well, I can't because he was horseshit. He's never been any good. I mean, so that's the one that kind of bugs me. Like you're right. If you had a great run, hooray for you.
Yeah.
But as long as you realize why you're no longer great, then you're the guy I want to talk to.
You'll be great again someday.
There you go. Ask the New England Patriots.
Claibs, I got to ask you.
Let's go to the phones, and Greg is standing by in Kirkwood. Greg, you're on the air. First time caller, you say?
First time caller, long time listener, Claibs.
Season ticket holder by chance.
I believe probably back to when you and Rammer were on 590, maybe.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Long time. But I mean, Snell, Sonny Gray, Aaron Nola.
Sonny Gray.
Snell
can only give you 5 innings. All right.
Okay.
Aaron Nola his best baseball might be behind him. I mean, he gives up a lot
Yeah.
of home runs. Now I know he's an innings eater, but I think the best is behind him, and I think that's one of the reasons why Philadelphia is moving away from him. Or maybe they think they can get him, but the bottom line is, if they really want him, they would have signed him by now.
Okay.
And I think Sonny Gray is a guy. He's a manageable guy. I mean, he's a little older.
Yeah.
Doesn't serve up a lot of home runs. Not necessarily the biggest swing and miss guy, and that's where the game is going now. But I think he throws enough strikes where he can keep himself in ball games.
I would think we got to pick up somebody through a trade, right? I mean,
yes, I agree.
And you're a longtime St. Louis media person. My favorite thing about St. Louis Cardinal fans is well, we want this guy who's a strong number one, and we're going to take the bottom 6 guys on our roster, just package them up, and they're going to go for it.
Don't forget a case of a bag of balls.
Yeah,
they've only been hit once in batting practice.
Always. Yeah. They did. My dad is guilty of this, and no, my brother too. No, just give them these guys. I mean, like, well, those guys aren't that good.
They want them?
But if you put them all together, no, they're still. But I would think it's going to have to be something that hurts, and I would imagine it's Gorman or Donovan, or
I think they're going to try and hold on to those two. But here's the reason why Cardinal fans think that way. When you think about the guys that the Cardinals gave Arizona and also Colorado for Goldschmidt and Arenado.
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Diamondbacks don't have one player left in that deal.
Really?
And Colorado has 2. And one barely plays. The other one's a starter, an alleged starter. So,
lefty?
Austin Gomber.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, you say to yourself, come on, you can't be serious. Oh, yeah, we're serious. We did it twice.
Yeah.
There's always a pigeon out there. But I don't think you can live by that.
Right.
So, but here's the thing, and you mentioned 2 guys who are left-handed. We have so many left-handed bats that all kind of do the same thing. That Gorman hits for more power, but I think the red flag might be the fact he misses a lot of time because he had a barking back. So that's something that teams, you can have a lot of things go wrong with you, but if you're in the baseball business and you got a bad shoulder or a bad back, teams kind of have a tendency to step back away from you.
Okay. Man, that was what was really burning. And you think, can they catch up on this swing and the miss thing, or will it go back? Will it?
No, I think it's here for a while. And it's just like a few years ago, everybody wanted to stay low in the zone. Everybody want to pound that 2-seamer. Now everybody wants to throw a 4-seamer up in the zone. So we go through trends. It depends on who wins the World Series. That's really what it comes to, because everybody feels like we can take that model. Now, the problem
so they're like Hollywood. They're just
there's no doubt. They just keep recycling the same idea. It just depends on who gets a trophy for it. That's all it comes down to. And I think the same thing's going to happen here.
Well, I got to say, I never played baseball competitively. I was
let's hang up on this guy. He's never played.
No. Listen, Claibs. But if you talk to the guy that runs Tower T, the batting cages down there, I see you laughing, Claibs, but I can swing it down there. And I will say, if you go before they transformed, they had 90-mile-an-hour Wednesdays down there. Okay. This guy, Dave, would crank it up to 90 on Wednesdays. And they got the old school arm. Yeah.
It was like an overhand catapult.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you, Claibs, at 90, that ball moves around. Okay.
And you can hear it hissing.
Yes. And if they throw a low pitch and the next one's a high strike, I can't see it. It's tough. And then you hear the loneliest sound in sports, which is that ball hitting boom. That thing that when it hits the back at the batting cages, it's humiliating. Every kid in the place turns and looks at me, man.
Well, they don't have to look at you in the cage anymore. They can see you on stage this weekend at the Funny Bone. You're going to be there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
Yep. And we've got I only do this in a few cities. We're doing a matinee show on Sunday, all ages. We bring the kids on stage afterwards and interview them, and it's like a talk show kind of.
You're
pretty
going
fun.
like Art Linkletter here.
Yes. Yeah.
I think we just lost half the audience when I dropped that name.
I don't care.
Neither do I. Greg Warren, man, it's been so cool to have you back on Claibs Online. Best of luck not only this weekend, but certainly with your career. And don't feel like you can't be a stranger. You're not a stranger when it comes to St. Louis and certainly this show.
Hey, thanks a lot, Claibs. Can't wait for this season.
He's Greg Warren. Come see us. You have a personal invitation to come up to the booth and hang out.
Amazing.
All right. He's Greg Warren. I'm Mike Claiborne. We call this Claibs Online on claibsonline.com.